Lead and Empower Her with Dr. Julie Ducharme, the show that takes you around the world to share interviews with some of the most successful and relevant people on the planet. Hear their stories and get the most important business lessons they have learned on their road to success, and get exclusive advice on how to implement their success into your life and business. Lead and Empower Her with Dr. Julie Ducharme is brought to you by the Strategic Advisor Board and your host, Dr. Julie Ducharme.
Hi, welcome to the She CEO Talks. So excited back for another episode. This is such a blessing because I get to talk to women around the world about what they're doing in their world and their businesses and the changes they're making. And every time I do this, it's nothing short of exceptional. Today, I'm really excited to have Patricia Gagic with us. She has been an internationally lauded for her work as one of Canada's most exceptional communicators, as an award-winning contemporary artist, author, and successful entrepreneur. Patricia is an esoteric energy leader, founder of the Karmic Art Experience, merging realism with soul. And in 2017, she was presented the Excellence in the Arts for Courage and Commitment to Human Rights, Dignity, Freedom, awarded by the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. She's also been a recipient of the 2020 Lifetime Achievement Award by Universal Women's Network. And in 2013, she was knighted as a Dame of the Order of the St. George Grand Priory of Canada. Also, Patricia is committed to her Cambodian work, supporting a Buddhist library, school for poor children and monks, and orphanage, and the Reflections Initiative, sponsoring girls' soccer teams in Nicaragua, and the People's Improvement Organization, CNN Hero of Cambodia, and have named her as an ambassador. And she has a long list of other things, but I want to go ahead and bring Patricia on in so we can chat with her. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
It's been an interesting month, and I always love our listeners to learn about you and your story, but I know you've had some difficult times that you wanted to share about with what's been going on with you, and so I'd love to give you an opportunity to share on that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. It's really wonderful to have another conversation with you. Yes, this last month and a half has been probably one of the most difficult. On April 3rd, my young daughter, 41 years old, suddenly passed away. And of course, that was completely not expected. She has a 20-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So I have 3 grandchildren. And we are hoping that our hearts and our minds are going to be able to, get through this period of time. The celebration of life we had last Sunday, and it was incredible. Had probably 200 people in the room at all times, and between 500 and 600 people came through over the course of, from 11:30 until 5:30 to honor Kira. We had musicians and, just so many people that had, the one common phrase that everybody kept saying as they came up to me, Kira was my best friend. And then another person would say, Kira was my best friend.
Yeah.
So I think she had like 500 best friends in the room, but a really, really difficult time for anyone to go through, losing a sibling or their own child. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been definitely praying and thinking of you, and what a legacy she left to have so many people come in and talk about what an amazing person she is.
Yeah.
And so that's just a testament to you and you raising her, and what an amazing human being she has been. So thank you for sharing that with us. And of course, I'm sure if any of you are listening and you've been in this position as well, it's a tough thing. And as a community, especially as She Talkers, we're here to support you in anything you need, because that's what it is. It's our sisterhood, right?
Yes.
So you ask and we will come and we will help. So I'm blown away by everything you do. We've talked a couple times, and your art and how you give back and just everything you're doing. And so I'm so excited because you're the first artist I've ever had on my show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love this because I just want to take some time. I think what's really neat about interviewing women from all these different industries, right, is that I look at my daughter, and I think I might have mentioned this, but she's been getting into art, and during COVID, she learned how to oil paint. And it was, a really wonderful woman who was an artist just started doing oil painting for middle school girls. And so she would come like once a week and paint for 4 hours. So she's gotten into art, which is something she'd never do. And she's now interested in like the digital side of it. And I just love presenting all the opportunities within the world for women to jump in with, because I feel a lot of times like they don't always take advantage of these skills that they have. And you have done that in a tremendous way. So I'd love to maybe start with your story. How did you end up getting into this world of art?
Yeah. So it's really been a quality of having a really left side, right side brain. I've had a career in finance, in corporate, in being an entrepreneur, but also then wanted to maintain my creative side. And so when I was really young, my father, really wanted me to be, following his footsteps. He was an accountant. However, and I loved that idea, but I was drawing from the time I was like 3 or 4 years old. I just couldn't stop. I wanted to be a fashion designer. I absolutely loved dresses and material. And I was drawing Elizabethan ball gowns, I think, when I was like 3 or 4 years old. And and whoever saw those, I mean, this is a long time ago. So when I decided that I wanted to continue pursuing art, my journey, led me into what is it that I have to do that will put me in a position where I can be recognized.
Mm.
And of course, the more that you learn about, the opportunities, you actually realize like this is not going to be the easiest road to travel.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to backtrack a little bit, I also was interested in being a bank manager. And that was something that I fought hard for. I started, finishing high school, and I thought, well, I want to just get to work. Like I just want to get a job in the bank. So that's what I did. I applied for a teller's job, and I was hired. The very first day I walk in and I see this gentleman sitting in the manager's office with, a black suit and a white shirt. And I went, there are no women in this realm here. So I want to do something about that. And I just continued to, move up that corporate ladder. I wanted to learn every single job there was in the branch. So I was a DDA clerk. This is going back to the time when we were in the early 70s. We were handwriting the cards and processing them. Now everything's computerized. So, but that led me into finally being recognized. And I received my first branch manager position when I was 25 years old. And this was in Winnipeg. And I was, in this district, Manitoba, Saskatchewan district. And I had mentors. I had this gentleman, Bruce Berry, who saw that I was, keen, and I was very energetic, and I really loved people, and I could really talk to people. So there was, a lot of good qualities that he said I would make a great branch manager. And then the opportunity came up. I had my first branch, then my second branch, and then a third branch. And then we were transferred back to Ontario. And I was then made the manager of personal banking. This was a time when the banks were separating corporate and personal. And I had 92 employees. I was 28 years old. 92 employees in a massive corporate downtown Toronto, third largest branch. And it was something that fueled my belief that if you put your mind to it, I took ICB courses, Institute of Canadian Banker courses, but I really played the zero emotion on no pity party. I did not want to believe that all those suited people walking around me were any different or better than I was. I was a really determined person for fighting for equanimity and equality for women. And I stuck to my guns. I just said, I can do this. The other thing is that the art remains such an important part of my process. I love mathematics, and I started drawing these like ink drawings, and I called them the vortex graphic drawings.
Mhm.
But they really were so mathematically, based. So
Mhm.
it became a little, pivot. But as I became really, really digging my heels into abstract art, I knew I needed a mentor, but I didn't know how that was going to happen. And the story evolved into my, husband finding this place for us to go to France.
Mhm.
I go and pick up the key. The gentleman there lets me see all his art collection, and I see this one particular painting by Dragic. I said Dragic because it's a Serbian name, and he goes, no, it's Dragic. He's from France, Savoyant. So I said, just like, you don't know what pushes your buttons, but I said, I want to meet him, like out of the blue, like why? And I just liked the feel of it, but there was the curiosity, and I really feel that was a karma piece.
Mhm.
And so we got to France, and lo and behold, we contacted Monsieur Dragic, and he said no, wasn't interested in meeting me. And you don't say no to me. I thought, one, that you're not going to say no to me. And we called him back and said, we're here from Canada, and we would really, really like to meet you. He said, all right, fine, I'll give you a couple of hours. And that was mind-boggling because he told us not to be late. Of course, we detoured the wrong way, going up 3 hours to Mont Ventoux. But when we arrived, then I walked into his atelier and his studio, and I saw his name on posters with Alvarez, Atlan, Picasso, Christo. And that's when I said, oh my goodness, like I've walked into a hornet's nest here because this is way out of my league. But fortunately, he was a super gentleman, and he invited me to come back.
Wow.
That's where the story started. Yeah.
So was he was like a mentor to you in just kind of growing your process in art?
Yeah. So he basically said, what does she want? Does she want fame? Does she want, what does she want? Why does she want to spend this time with her life in art? And my husband said, no, she wants to be a really good artist, and, maybe you could help her. So he invited me, but the prerequisite was that I needed to speak better French. I had high school French, and that really wasn't going to cut it. So I hired a tutor, 32 hours, and I had every Le Baron. I had every book I could possibly find. I was dreaming, sleeping, eating in French. And we went back, and I knew I only had 1 week with him. And he didn't want to teach anybody. And that he's a very, very, I won't say he's an eccentric genius, isolated, very, very, very complex human being. But I did meet, the task, and I spoke enough French that I was able to communicate with him. And after that 1 week, he said I could come back another week.
Wow.
And so several months later, I flew back to France. And then 4 months later, I flew back to France. And this is back in 1999. So from 1999 until today, I've been there many, many times. And in 2007, he invited me to have an exhibition with him, Patricia Gagic. And, he every week that I would show up, he would take me through the Matisse palette. And we didn't talk about the name or the names of the colors. Everything was done by number. So I had to memorize the entire oil, every oil paint by number.
Wow.
So we would mix like a 507 and a 517 with a dash of 107, and that was my palette. It was his.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love that you just persisted, right? Where other people might have been like, okay, fine, he doesn't want to meet with me.
Yeah.
I can relate with you in that I got to this point in my life where there'd be these people way out of my league, but I wanted to learn from them. And I'm like, I'm just going to ask. What's the worst thing that happens? They say no. The best thing that happens, they say yes. And more than often, they said yes. And such a neat experience that you got to have with him. And wow, learning French too. Like that's impressive.
Yeah. There's no way, uh, if I think about limiting ourselves,
Mm,
and it wasn't that Dragon or French was my obstacle. My obstacle was me, the belief that,
mm,
was I going to be good enough? Was I smart
mm,
enough that I would learn the craft?
mm,
One thing he really commanded from me was, nothing, zero. So when I would visit him, he would really, really, not really want to hear anything I had to say about anything. He just said, it got to the point where he was frustrated when I arrived because he had to prepare for me. He said, to have an éponge, like you're a sponge. And I have to have so much material to show you because you
mm,
grab onto things too quickly. And
mm,
now I need more and more and more. So
mm,
I challenged him. He said I was one of his greatest challenges in life. And
mm.
he didn't want to get rid of me, which was great. So
Yeah.
we pursued. We had, incredible relationship. His wife Sylvie, their children. We really have bonded,
Mm,
and I know he's very proud of me. And I know that I I really tried to uh, work hard enough that he would see the value in spending time. But it also taught me, which I'd already really felt I had anyways, the understanding of mentoring and how important that was, and especially being a woman. So, this past year, this year I'm going to be 71.
mm,
So if I look at my life and I think of all of the decades of, really fighting for my rights, like,
mm,
I'm sure that we could sit down and I could tell you the stories of what happened in the back room,
mm,
and, the put downs and you're not good enough, etc. And yet I think that inside of uh, our brain, there is a little part that already says, I already know who I am. I already know my value. And I not only deserve to be here, but I have something else to offer.
mm,
And I think the really important lessons for me were that I could share and I could help and really, promote other women and secure a position, at the board where what I had to say was valuable, and so
mm,
do other women. And in Canada, we have the WXN, Women's Executive Network, top 100 most powerful women in Canada. And I
mm,
had been nominated once and twice and three and four times, and then I was inducted into the Hall of Fame. And the encouragement, I think, in the last decade and a half, that women are showing one another and standing up for one another and pulling each other up is really phenomenal, because I didn't have that when I
mm.
started. I did not have that.
Yeah.
You were hoping that there would be somebody that would pay attention to you and not look at you like, oh, you're just a cute little blonde girl.
Mhm.
That yourself from your own experiences, in your life.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, I mean, that was really the driving force for She Talks with me, is that as I was climbing that ladder, I was so desperate to find a mentor. I was so desperate to
Right.
find another woman who could relate with me on struggles of like being a working mom and all those other things. And it wasn't present. And like you, I just felt this real longing. And this is why I'm so excited about what we're doing with She Talks, is because we're really building this sisterhood. I mean, women are truly now championing each other. And especially I think over the last years, in a time where women were really divided, is we're starting to fill that gap. And I think that's so important. It's transcending religion and politics, which is
Mm.
amazing. And that's such an amazing experience you have, which I think too, for our young women who are listening to this, like about the persistence and the keep going, and what an amazing relationship you built with this mentor. And of course, it led you down obviously a road of a ton of success in the art world. I know we were going to highlight a little bit about and tell me if I'm saying this right, karmic art experience. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, so the karmic art experience is actually what I created. So after, having business life and an art career, I also have been a meditator for a long, 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 long time, and so curious about life and philosophy and religion. I studied the Hanmi Esoteric Mystery School of Buddhism. I studied the Kabbalah, the Zohar, the Tanya, Maimonides, Lama Yeshe Ling, Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition, Catholicism, so many aspects. Then I have a very significant library. But I think that when I felt that I needed a little more deepening, I went to the University of Toronto and I completed 2 3-year programs, applied mindfulness and transformative mindfulness, in the same 3 years. So I went back and forth every day, to U of T, and pretty grueling. But I think at the end of the day, what I realized is we are and have the ability to be a tabula rasa, like to be completely free of the attachments that we have that bring us the suffering. There is an ability for a cessation of suffering, and it's not always just by meditation or therapy. It's by using what is inside of us that is creative. And a lot of people don't think that they can paint or they can draw or that they don't have any talent. And for me, it's like, if I'm with you and I spend enough time with you, trust me, I'm going to find it. And so the karmic art experience evolved into me bringing people to that level of confidence and then drawing out of them, giving them some tools, obviously, and also using music. Music is a really, really important part of my life, like a huge part. And now I feel the experience of the karmic art experience is just going to explode. Like, I'm really, really excited. Every single person. And we did have, there was a period of time during COVID where I did the Canadian Olympic girls women's hockey members before they went to Beijing. And oh no, that was after. So I know by virtue of evidence-based that if you put the time in and the effort and you make the decision that you're going to commit yourself, you can find something inside of you that will just explode and open up a door. And I think so many people, and again, this is a testy part. Competition is definitely existing in this world. And there's competition between women and women. And there's also competition in the hierarchy of the corporate world. And I've experienced a lot of that. But I also think that if you find your essence and you're comfortable with it and you're really, really just at that place in your life where you can say, there isn't anybody who's going to topple me over or push me over. I will negotiate my way. I will mediate. I will pay attention. But my number one lesson that I say to every single person is, do not hesitate. Whatever it is, hesitation is a true enemy of the world. And, you certainly have to be methodical and use your integrity and use your good common sense. But this little bit of iffy, shouldn't I, maybe I'm not so sure. And then you lose an opportunity. And I always say, that hesitation, if you've got, and again, it's the intuition, like the gut intuition and harnessing that and saying, I got a good feeling about this at the same time. If you have a bad feeling about it, it's a skunk. It is a skunk. Like, you have to know when to let go. And I say, take those karmic scissors and release yourself, release the attachment from that. It's not a bad thing. It gives you the freedom to do what you need to do. And also for people who are in your life, you're also freeing them to have other experiences. So, we don't always want to let people go, but that's a good rule. Like, we do need to clean the playpen, the sandbox sometimes, and free ourselves up to become, the stronger person that we know that we are.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I agree with you. I do see so many women with such creative talent that oftentimes they're not confident with themselves. And I see it, but they can't see it, and so I love what you're doing there. And I know you do all sorts of different types of programs with that. And, Josh will put up on the screen here your website so people can connect with you and see your galleries. I also want to make sure we touch on what's up and coming for you. And I don't know anything about it except you said documentary. So I'd love for you to fill
Oh,
us
yeah.
in on your documentary and what's happening there.
Well, I've been, okay. So in the art, I have had the opportunity to be recognized multiple different ways and have been a recipient of Art Tour International top 60, but also they did something called the Titans of the New Era. And there were 10 artists in the world and that were chosen. And a documentary was filmed on each of the 10. So I ended up having my own documentary. It's a 1 hour and 20 minutes. It only was supposed to be like 50 minutes, but there was so much material that they wanted to, incorporate. And so Art Tour's release of the documentary was actually to have taken place at the beginning of April. But when my daughter passed away, I really asked them if they would just, hold off. That was not a priority for me. And even though, they'd come from New York and spent a week here, and we filmed in Niagara Falls and Toronto, et cetera, in the galleries, it happened. So it's been released now. And I'm really shocked at, that it actually turned out to be as good as it is.
Yeah,
You second guess yourself all the time,
of
am I going
course.
to be
Yeah.
a rambling, whatever? And it's not scripted. Like literally Viviana would sit there and she would say to me, tell me about Cambodia and tell me about this or whatever. And then you just get into the story. You're talking for 5-6 days nonstop, and they edit and
Yeah.
edit, and they take the best of what you've said, and
Yeah.
then it flows. And we had a few other people also be interviewed, some of my friends, my colleagues, and I wasn't there when that was being done. So again, the documentary is now there, and you have an opportunity to really hear. And it's pretty. I mean, it's heartfelt for sure, because that's really important to me. There's no point in living a life if you're living it so self-attached that nobody can relate to you. Nobody can, feel that they've got something that that's tangible. So it's very kind of lesson driven, which is I think I like that idea. I liked it a lot. So.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch it, and we'll make sure to put the links out so everyone can too. It's so exciting and such a really awesome way to look at your legacy as an artist and what you've done. I just love that. And I can't leave out also that you are a philanthropist as well. You have done so much work, and I'd love for you to mention the different groups that you've worked with. So one, if there's opportunities for people to contribute to it, they can. And also just to hear the different ways that they can support what you've been doing. I know we talked about your Cambodian work, the Buddhist library, and the orphanage. So if you want to touch on that, I think that'd be great for our listeners to learn about.
I believe that, when I started working for the bank, it was really important for you to have a corporate or a community presence. And so I became super involved in a number of organizations. So for years and years and years, everything from the Buck Elgar Choral Society, years and years with United Way. Junior Achievement was a really big one, corporate and, project business. I was also involved with Free the Children, and very much involved now with the Sir Edmund Hillary Foundation. We have a school in outside of Kathmandu in a hospital in the Solo Khumbu Valley in Nepal. And then in 2006, I had my friend Kathy was actually writing a book called Markawasi, the Stone Forest of Peru, and she wanted to go to Thailand and have her book published. And I said to her, I'd always been kind of smitten with Cambodia. There was a young girl that worked with me in the bank who came from Cambodia during the time of the Pol Pot regime, during the time of the Khmer Rouge, and she had lost all her family. And it was very gutting for me, just the inequality, the suffering, was going on in the world. So when Kathy went to Thailand and then to Angkor Wat to Siem Reap, she called me and she said, this thing has happened here. She said, I've gone to the Angkor, to the South Pagoda, and I've met this monk, and they've got some problems here, and your name is written all over it. So can you send $5,000 basically? I'm like, what are we doing here? And it was because during the time of the Khmer Rouge, they had buried they had to burn all the books, and the monks wanted to rewrite the Buddhist teachings and the Cambodian folklore on reeds and then bury them in the stupas underground. Now, 25 years after the government is stable and Master Kawan wants to take them out, but he needs a library. He needs somewhere to put them. And of course, the buildings are really, really shoddy, and they don't even have bathrooms or showers or kitchens. It's really out in the jungle there. So he wanted to build this library and thought that would save the day. And Kathy said, if you can help them. And I did. The following year, 2007, a group of my friends were going to China. This was the year of Beijing for the Olympics, was the year prior. And we went. And I said, well, while we're all here, let's all go to Cambodia. Nobody wanted to go. And I said, well, I'm going. My husband said, you're not going by yourself. I said, good, I'm buying 2 tickets. So we went to Cambodia. We saw the library, and I saw the school and all the work that we had done. And I fell in love with the people, with Master Kawan, with Sotani Pyung. And I just plodded through year after year after year after year of helping them and building an innovation house in Buang Miala. And then Tani, the interpreter, came to me and he said, there's a lot of children here who have never seen computers. Do you think we could have a computer lab, and let's get that started? So we started a small school. And then my friend Jane, who's been with me for 40 plus years, she's also been super, super involved in Nicaragua with her brother. And I think we're up to 18 girls soccer teams in the most impoverished areas. It's phenomenal what we've been doing there. And, buying clothing and feeding them, because most of these girls would faint on the pitch because they didn't have any food for 2 or 3 days. So we realized that to have them play soccer, we had to feed them. And then we attracted so many more girls because we were feeding them. And we said, okay, well, let's just feed them some more and let's get the families going. And so it's really turned into something pretty wonderful. So it's the Reflections Initiative is what we are calling it. And so we continue to support, Cambodia as well as the Nicaragua work. And then I was involved with Help Heal Humanity, also with Serena Buffalino for a number of years. And that was a school project in Haiti. And of course, the circumstances in Haiti are extreme, very extreme. And it became very difficult for us to do a lot of work. I'm also Rotarian, Service Above Self. And so the Rotary in Haiti has also connected with Help Heal Humanity. And now, there's several projects that are underway that way. So.
Oh, I love that. And thank you for sharing that. I mean, I especially the one about the soccer, I've played sports, and I feel like sports are so impactful, especially for young women. Right now here in the US, they're saying that girls are dropping out of sports at age 12. And I feel like that is such an important time for young women to get a chance to experience, sisterhood, the teams, the learning to win, learning to lose, the character building that sports bring. And I always tell people, you don't have to go play at a high level to benefit from everything that sports brings. And so I just think that's fantastic what you're doing there. Is there any way that people, if they want to donate or support that, is there opportunities to do that? Or we can drop obviously the link in there.
I will do that. So I'm bad at this. So the Reflections Initiative, but I will have to get it's a very specific, we've applied for the Revenue Canada for our CRA not-for-profit status. And so we're just seconds away from having that. So that here in Canada, and I believe they're going to be setting it up in the US. We'll be able to offer tax receipts. But I mean, at this point in time, I've never felt that that was what was super important. It was just getting the job done and sending. So yes, but people can reach out to me for sure, patgagic@gmail.com, and then I can connect them with, Jane or whatever organization.
Perfect.
Sure.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, as we're coming to the end of our podcast, I always love to ask everyone this one question is, if you could go back to your younger self and give your younger self advice, what would it be?
Okay, so as many of the interviews that I've had, that question, I'm always stumbled by it. I want to say, like, there's so many, I believe for sure that the number one thing would be risk. I was to a certain degree, I would take risk, but I think if I could go back and talk to myself and say, you really, even though I think I've taken so many risks, I really could have pushed it a little bit more. And, fear is not my currency. And yet we all are raised with fear. We have fear. We're socially shown how fear manifests itself. So the risk and the fear would probably sit at the top of that conversation right there.
Yeah, that resonates with me. I feel like that too. I think I could definitely have taken a few more risks.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that. So this has been an amazing conversation. And of course, if you're listening, driving right now, and you're like, I didn't get those links, don't worry. We'll put them all in the post so you guys can access them. And of course, be able to reach out about all sorts of wonderful things that's going on. Make sure that you check out the documentary. I'm excited to watch that as well.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being on the show. And as I always say, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic self.
Thanks for listening to Lead and Empower Her with your host, Dr. Julie Ducharme. Please leave your feedback and visit strategicadvisorboard.com to get the latest and greatest business advisement on the planet. Follow us on social media for updates, and we'll see you on the next episode.